Night Monkey takes on the elements, whereas yesterday, Matt and I went to see Yesterday. What did we think? Plus, Killer Crocs! That and more on today's episode of The Real Review, so stay tuned!
Welcome to The Real Review.
Welcome to The Real Review, sponsored by Parametric and Lazy Ape Studios, where you get some of the latest happenings, real thoughts, and perspectives in the world of film and television. I'm here with Matt, Captain Planet.
Hey.
He's our hero. And who am I today, Matt?
Everybody, I'm here with Joel, the Night Monkey Cunningham.
The Night Monkey. I out
You're
of
like
all
the-
my superheroes,
Yeah,
that is my favorite superhero.
European Spider-Man.
Yes, European. Bonjour is
yeah.
the European Spider-Man. Yeah,
Friendly neighborhood European Spider-Man.
exactly.
Yep.
Yes. No, I mean Spider-Man in general, but
Spider-Man.
yes, Spiderman.
Yeah,
so,
I like it.
Yes, yours comes from also the Spider-Man movie, which
Yes.
but I don't want to go too into detail because some of this could be kind of quasi-spoilery.
No, you see that stuff in the trailer. I think you see some of that stuff in the trailer.
Some of
though.
that stuff in the trailer. Yeah, I was literally watching the movie though, and I was like watching it with my girlfriend. And I leaned over to her and I was like, "Next, they're going to introduce the heart element."
Yeah.
And I was like, it's kind of like I don't know why they popped in my head.
Wind, water,
Yes,
fire.
which for the comic book fans out there, I know that the elementals are, based upon comic book characters and
Yep.
not Captain Planet, so whatever. Anyway, Matt, why don't you give our listeners some ways to get connected to the podcast?
Yeah, definitely.
Since
Y'all can
it's
get
been a little
connected.
while.
It's been a while. Let me
Yeah.
just remind you. Let me refresh your memories. You can get connected with us a number of different ways, one of them being the website, which will link you to all of our social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, at Real Review Media. And then also youtube.com/therealreview, and you can reach out to us at our email, which is realreviewmedia@gmail.com, and that's how you can do that.
All right.
All right.
Thank you, Matt.
Yeah.
Yeah, so here on the podcast, Matt and I kind of tend to break things down a little bit stylistically. The way that we tend to see things is Matt is a bit more the fan perspective. He kind of has like the hype and the pump and the woohoo and the motion. I tend to be more the critical, kind of analytical, break things down bit by bit. And we put those two thoughts together to give you what we think is a real thought and perspective on films and cinema.
Critical
television.
mashup.
Yes, critical mashup. I know we have a lot of other things we'd like to be talking about on the podcast. We've been a little bit delayed, I think, over the last. I'm not going to make excuses here. We've just been super busy, and I'm headed off this week for Comic-Con to check out some
and
stuff
I won't
there.
be headed off this
I'm
week
sorry.
to Comic-Con.
I'm sorry, Matt. I can't.
You don't
regret
have to
this.
apologize, but you get to go do it.
Yeah,
so
but I
good
mean,
for you.
there's a lot of things that have come out over the last little while, but we're going to be focusing on 3 films that we both had a chance to see. Well, I had a chance to see 2 of them.
Yeah.
You had a chance to see all 3.
Yep.
Spider-Man, as we mentioned, Far From Home, Yesterday, and then also Crawl, which was the more recent release.
Crawl.
Yeah, so why don't we just get right into it since we've got a lot to talk about, Matt.
Yeah,
That sounds good?
absolutely.
Cool. Let's start with Spider-Man, Far From Home. Brief synopsis for this. Following the events of Avengers Endgame, 2019, in case you don't remember. Well, they keep this film in there. That Avengers Endgame is like 7 million now away from being the top
Is it
film of
7?
all
I thought
time.
it was 14 million.
No, it's down to 7, they said. So, yeah, and they still have some re-releases to do. Anyway,
Oh,
I'm totally
man.
breaking our thing here. Anyway,
Yeah,
I'll
it's
start from
okay.
the top. Following the events of Avengers Endgame, Spider-Man must step up to take on new threats in a world that has changed forever. Directed by John Watts, stars Tom Holland as Peter Parker, Samuel Jackson as Nick Fury, Jake Gyllenhaal, however you pronounce it, as Quentin Beck / Mysterio, Marissa Tomei as May Parker, Jon Favreau as Happy Hogan, Zendaya as MJ, and then let's see, who else would I mention here that's important? Remy Hill, Brad Davis, Angourie Rice is Betty Brant,
Guys,
Flash Thompson's Tony
Yeah.
Jacob Batalon, Ned Leeds. Yeah. Anyway, what were you gonna say?
I was
Matt?
going to say, just a quick note. It shouldn't be a big deal, but there's going to be spoilers for Avengers Endgame in here because
that's a good point,
of has to deal with some of the plot stuff.
Yeah, this one picks up almost direct. How many months is it? I forget. It said
Did it say? I thought it
don't
was
know if
just
it
like
said.
right after, pretty close to right
Pretty
after.
close to right after the events of Avengers Endgame, and so you kind of have to talk about in order to talk about some of the aspects of the film.
Yeah.
What were your thoughts, though, Matt? What do you think about this
I
one?
really liked it. I would say for me, I remember when we reviewed the Homecoming, I liked it more than you liked it, but I would put this on par with that one. And I will say I think it does a better job in the third act. I remember my main criticism with the first one was I felt the end battle was like anticlimactic in the first one.
Yeah.
And this one felt pretty epic. It felt
Yeah.
pretty good. I really liked the action. The whole third act was really, really cool.
My main gripe that I'm still sticking with from the first one is that it felt more of a Spider-Man trying to impress Tony Stark film mixed with Spider-Man discovering how his suit works film.
Sure.
And I didn't like either of those things because it's always been about the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, which is based on Peter Parker, lives in this, neighborhood, and he struggles with his life as well as his powers.
Sure.
So it's never been about a suit. It's never been about him living up to a standard for any of the other superheroes. I will say though, with this film, I liked a lot more.
Yeah.
There was a lot more elements to this film that felt more inclined towards a normal Spider-Man type film, but in regards to the film as well, I felt like it delved into issues that were realistic in the universe.
Yeah.
And they're doing something kind of interesting with Spider-Man in the direction that they're taking him in the MCU as well, which is kind of spoilery, so I don't want to go into it.
Sure.
But it really feels like they're setting him up to be a certain type of character within the MCU that I didn't really see coming, but I like.
Yeah.
Because if you think of him in who he is as, a character in all the just his comics, it kind of makes sense in a way. He's not the playboy, but he is a tinkerer. He is an inventor. He's very,
smart.
very, very smart. And we got to see a lot of that more in the forefront of this film. He invented a number of different things or figured out a number of different things kind of on the spot. I think one thing I wish I'd seen a little bit more of, and we just haven't really gotten from Tom Holland, maybe it's in there, or the writing. It might be the writing. There's no quips.
Yeah.
There
wasn't as many of those. Yeah.
Yeah.
There was like maybe one time towards the end I remember hearing something pretty specific, but yeah.
Yeah. It's the films tend to be a lot more when he's battling and fighting, they tend to be a lot more emotional and high stakes. And so I think maybe they're doing that on purpose because the quips kind of always help to break sort of the tension a little bit in the Spider-Man fights. He'll be in the midst of this big battle and he'll throw out this really silly quip about, this guy's mom or something like that. It sounds silly, but it's part of the reason why I've always really liked Spider-Man. It's kind of like he has a normal...
In like serious situations, he's like joking.
Yeah, he's got a bit of a sarcastic edge to himself in these battles with these like guys that are super powerful and want to destroy the world and stuff. And that's always kind of fun. Anything else? I'll let you
I really, I love the acting across the board. Actually, I think Jake Gyllenhaal is my favorite in this movie. And there's a scene in the middle of the movie that could probably put you on either side of the fence with him. But I think he brought a lot that I wanted to see. And there's just some things that happen that are kind of twisty that they show. Some of them are like mainly the end credit scenes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how are they going to, anyways, like a bunch of question marks in my head.
Yeah.
With both end credit scenes. And, I think that was really cool. Kind of sets up what are they going to do with Phase 4? Like because they're set to potentially announce some of that stuff at Comic-Con this week.
I'm going to be camping out, Matt. So
right,
don't be that jealous.
Send me all the messages.
I will. Yeah.
Okay, but I really liked some of what's going to happen. There's kind of something that happens in one of the credit scenes that's kind of like, oh, that's cool. And then I think just as a movie, I thought it was more exciting. I really liked this go around. I thought it was way better between Peter and MJ.
Yeah.
I really liked that. It was very, very like puppy love, like young, like, and I was kind of endearing. I was like, oh, I like that.
Yeah.
And then, well, this kind of takes it into maybe on the negative side. I thought it was funny, but some of the humor didn't land for me, like a lot more than I thought.
Yeah. Okay. I think overall more positives for me, if we're sticking with that for now. I really enjoyed the sort of antagonist in a way that Peter was dealing with this in the film. It wasn't just Mysterio, although it was. It was kind of, in like a deeper sense, the influence of technology.
Yeah.
And how that impacts our world. And it was very much hearkening back. And again, I think this is awesome because of how they're moving Peter Parker in the MCU. But it almost harkened back to like the early Iron Man films.
Yeah.
Which a lot of the times it was, Iron Man versus technology. Now, a lot of times it was technology he had created.
Yeah.
So there was that kind of edge to it. But this one was still very much in line with that whole like man versus technology type thing. And as well, the relationships in this film felt more, even though they were a bit silly at times, especially with some of the romantic stuff that happened with two of the characters.
Yeah.
They felt more real with some of it. I think in the last film, everything felt just kind of like it's in place because it's there, and it just has to be this way. But with this film, it kind of felt things like were more natural and more progressing in a certain way. And I liked as well, without giving things away too much, I liked the tie-ins to other MCU type films.
Me too.
That took place without me even expecting it. There was like ways in which this tied into other MCU characters and aspects, and I was just like, oh, that's cool, that's neat. And that's part of what made this film have a bit of weightiness to me, because it's like we're not only dealing with just like the next iteration and invention or whatever of a bad guy with Spider-Man, we're dealing with stuff that has impact all across the entire MCU
and I feel
universe.
like that sequence that you're talking about reminds me, or that's what I was talking about, the middle sequence with Gyllenhaal. And I think it was really clever. I thought it was really, really clever. And I was like, wow, that makes so much sense. The way they tied it all together. I was like, wow, that's cool.
Yeah. So tiptoeing more into, I think, some of the more negative, which there aren't a ton for me. I will say that up front.
Okay.
Although I like the relationship that MJ and Spider-Man have in this universe, I didn't feel like she is MJ in the true sense of who MJ is in the original.
Yeah, I don't think they're really trying to go for it, though.
No, I don't. It's not an attack against her acting or who she is as a character in the film. I think she's great and effective as a character that's in the film, but I almost wish they'd just kind of gone with some like brand new love angle interest in the world, because she's not acting like Mary Jane that I know.
Right.
It has not, and again, it has nothing, I didn't say again, but I didn't say this before, but it has nothing to do with her looks.
Sure.
Like she could be whatever, but it really, she's just not. MJ was always quick with she's very headstrong and very determined. She doesn't get shy. She's not awkward. She's she calls him Tiger because, she's got this kind of like, almost like vixen type attitude.
Yeah.
She wants to be a celebrity. She wants to be famous.
You're like, hashtag not my Mary Jane.
Well, I'm not trying to attack, because I think Zendaya is doing a good job with the character. I just think the character's not MJ. It's like LJ or PJ.
And I think that was
TJ
an intentional choice, though. You know, they decided to just do something different this go around.
Well, and the Spider-Man in this universe he's not quite the Spider-Man that I'm used to either. He's not full of the quips and the things like that.
Hashtag not my Spider-Man.
Start a protest here.
Yeah.
What about you? What are some negatives for you, Matt?
I don't have a lot of negatives either. I think I was a little annoyed at some of the attempts of humor in the movie.
Yeah.
I felt like there were they were trying to go play the laugh too many times, I felt like.
Yeah.
I
think the happy type romantic thing that was going on, I don't want to spoil that, but like that relationship that was going on there, that felt a little stupid to me and silly. It was like, okay.
I didn't mind that one as much. It was just like a lot of the friends on the trip and the teacher.
Yeah.
There was like there was an extended scene of like the teacher and his camera.
Yeah.
That I was like, what is that even in the movie for?
Yeah.
Like, I didn't understand the point of it. And
I think the funniest part to me, to be honest, was actually, and I could have seen this being annoying to some people though, was kind of the initial, Cage interaction or when he has with Spider-Man at the hotel, that the Nick Fury, sorry, Cage, Nicolas Cage.
Nick Cage.
Nick Fury. The original interaction that they have, and there's like this constant stream of interruptions.
Yeah.
Like that was hilarious to me, but then there was like other times where I was like, yeah, I get what you're going for. It just feels a little silly.
Yeah. I think it was too, the frequency was just a bit too much. And I think that's kind of what dulled out the other ones, Yeah. But other than that, that might be my biggest thing.
Yeah. It was the interesting thing to me was, and it's almost like one I want to see a second time, the plot was very convoluted in the sense of like how this is happening and how this is progressing.
Yeah.
But every time I thought about it, I'm like, oh, well, that actually makes sense.
Yeah.
And it really does work, I believe, if you look at it, and they present it in a way that's so confusing, but if you really look at it.
How'd you feel about Gyllenhaal? Just overall?
Actually, I didn't mention him. I really liked him.
Yeah.
I thought he was good in this role. I didn't know what direction they were going to take Mr. Mysterio in it. He's not Mr. Mysterio, but Mysterio.
Mr. Mysterio.
Yeah. I didn't know what they were going to do and how they were going to handle that. But I think they did a really awesome job with making that happen. And I think Jake Gyllenhaal did very good justice to this character.
Yeah.
And I think it was really cool as well, if you're familiar with the comic story of Mysterio at all, kind of the way his story ends in the film, how it ties into very, very similarly with the comic book and the way he's originally presented.
Some pretty clever stuff. Yeah. It was really, really cool.
Overall, unexpectedly happy.
It's awesome.
Especially considering my feelings to the last film, which just were not that great.
I liked Homecoming a lot. Yeah.
So what are you going to give this one, just so we can kind of move on here?
I'm going to give it an 88.
80? Nice. Yep. I'm actually right in the same ballpark as you. I'm giving it an 89.
Ooh.
So slightly higher. I heard a couple people also complaining about the fact that it felt almost like a vacation film mixed with a superhero film, but I loved that.
Yeah,
I thought it was like, hey, it's like Christmas, it's like European Vacation mixed with Spider-Man.
Yeah, it's good.
Cool. Let's
Good
move
stuff.
on to the next one then.
Totally.
Matt, do you have this one up too?
I do, yeah.
Okay, do you want to intro it then?
Yeah, let's talk about this next one, Yesterday, okay?
Let's talk
about it yesterday. We're going to talk about the movie Yesterday. Synopsis: a struggling musician realizes he's the only person on Earth who can remember the Beatles after waking up in an alternate timeline where they never existed. Directed by Danny Boyle, and it stars Himesh Patel, Lily James, Sophia Di Martino, a lot of people actually. Ed Sheeran, Mira Sayal, Harry Mitchell.
Yeah, he's really Ed Sheeran's really been making a go of it at the whole acting thing. I mean, started with I think Game of Thrones.
I saw the trailer for this movie and I was like, that looks kind of interesting.
Yeah.
And the trailers, I don't feel like in my mind they didn't play it off as like a really funny movie. But let me just say, and I texted you right after I saw this, I thought this movie was surprisingly funny.
Mm-hmm.
Really funny.
Yeah.
And I really love this movie.
Yes, I think with the exception of one character, which I'm sure we'll talk about, it was very subdued humor.
Okay, that's the one thing I think. Did I tell you about that?
I don't know.
Kate McKinnon?
Yes.
Kate McKinnon drove me freaking nuts in this movie.
Yeah, me
Anyways,
too.
so, but other than that, I love this movie.
Yeah, it sneaks up on you.
Yeah.
And
let's just, there's...
We didn't go into... Did you list actors?
I did.
Oh, you did?
I did.
I wasn't paying attention.
And,
Just kidding.
Welcome to the show, Joel.
Yeah.
There's flavors of this movie. One of my favorite movies of all time, it might be my favorite, is That Thing You Do. Mm-hmm. There's like elements of it, like kind of the quirkiness of it, the music's element of it, all that stuff reminded me of That Thing You Do. Mm-hmm. And I was like, it just made me feel like nostalgic. Plus the Beatles, the Beach Boys, and Eagles, all those bands are what I grew up listening to because it's what my dad listened to.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of just emotional tie-ins for me. And then it was hilarious. And I don't know, there's some like moral dilemma stuff that I was like, yeah, that's kind of a good question. What do you do?
Yeah.
And there's just a lot of different elements that were very surprising to me. And I really enjoyed it.
It's like a moral dilemma in the sense that you're never going to be in.
Right.
But you still kind of wonder if I was...
Yeah.
How would I handle
It's kind of like, and this is it's kind of posed in the trailer and it's not really a spoiler, but it's like, hey, do I deprive the world of the Beatles music?
Yeah.
Or do I ride the wave of their fame?
Right. And cash in on
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And
it's funny in the film how quickly he's like, he makes a decision, he just goes for it.
Yeah.
But then he starts to, which seems very realistic, over time he starts to realize, it's like cashing in a lottery ticket you didn't win.
Yeah.
You realize over time, like, hey, maybe this comes with baggage that I wasn't properly prepared for.
Yeah.
That I didn't really get the repercussions of until now.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the reasons I liked it. I think there's comparisons as well to something like That Thing You Do. Mm-hmm. The reason that it couldn't be the same type of film is just because it exists in a farcical universe.
Yeah.
Whereas That Thing You Do exists in like, this is a time period that has happened and this is a very realistic story. Mm-hmm. So, but what was really cool about it was there was a very human element to it, and it's touching in a certain way, because you feel like if I were in these people's shoes, maybe I could see this going in a very similar way. And
right.
There's a heart to it, and that's what I really feel like when you watch this film, you leave with the sense of like,
yeah,
that's kind of nice. And I don't know if this is directly tied into the other one, but it also reminded me of a film that came out a little while ago called Sing Street.
Oh yeah, I love Sing Street.
Yeah. The difference there is the music is all original in
Yeah.
Sing Street, but it had that same kind of heart.
Yep.
In a sense, that one's set in a more again, in our universe versus this made up one. But,
Not the multiverse.
Yeah, but there were so many funny parts with this movie where you're just like, oh, that's clever, that's funny, that's simple, that's sweet, and it was not trying to be too much, at the same time as it was presenting this really big story of this guy, taking on the Beatles music and becoming this worldwide sensation. And it was slightly satiring. I think if anything, it was like kind of attacking and tearing down this whole idea of fame and what it means to be like a part of the music industry, which I don't think there's anybody out there that's really like, how dare they attack the music industry? Like at this point, we pretty much all agree that it's like a necessary evil, the music industry. In a certain sense, it's given us great music and stuff, but it's also kind of manipulated certain aspects. So any other things from you?
No, I'm a musician and songwriter and stuff too, and I think it touched, kind of my heart on that level. I was like, oh, I get his struggle. He feels like he's not being heard in his songs, and
Yeah.
And there's just so many jokes. I was giggling a lot in this movie.
Yeah.
There's this whole bit where he's trying to play his parents' Let It Be.
Yeah. That was
great.
great.
And he's like, all right, you played the beginning 3 times now, so let's
just move on. Yeah. And you're like, come on, people. And it's so funny because you recognize where he's coming from in that scenario.
Yeah.
You can feel for him, but at the same time, I liked how he struggled with Eleanor Rigby and trying to figure out how that one goes and stuff. I thought that was going to play a bigger. Yeah. I think one of the only things that felt a little bit manipulated to me, it was more of a negative. I love the relationship between Himesh and Lily in this film. I felt like that was very heartfelt and they felt very closely connected. Right. But the reason that there was sort of drama between them felt a bit manipulative.
Right. So I have 2 things. Let's talk about that. Let me go into my negatives because I love almost everything about this movie except for these 2 elements. One, we already talked about Kate McKinnon.
Yeah.
Way overboard.
Yeah, it's not like I felt like she couldn't have done a good job, but for some reason they either coached her to be way over the top or she standardly plays a very odd character and stuff. Like she plays that weird
like
kind of quirky, like
she can't play like a subtle character for some reason.
Yeah, and it's like just take it down like 2 or 3 degrees and we'd be fine.
It just seemed like she was in a different movie.
Right, exactly.
So a Saturday Night Live skit.
Yeah, it felt like she was treating it like a Saturday Night Live skit. And I'm like, why? Everybody else seems to be taking this pretty serious, so why can't you?
The other thing was the Lily James element. I like their relationship, but what they needed to do, they had like a flashback, but it was like towards the end of the movie. Yeah. What they needed to do is they needed to front load the movie with some of that stuff, I feel like.
I agree. Yeah.
And that would have set you up better for that arc that happens.
Yeah, because you really don't. I really didn't get a certain understanding of why their relationship hadn't progressed beyond a certain point.
Right.
It really didn't make a lot of sense.
There's a joke that's said at the
obviously they're both attracted to each other.
Yeah.
There is a joke. And
there's a joke at the beginning, but at first I was like, I don't get the joke because they didn't explain that there was no relational element.
Even a couple times in the film, people say like, really? Like questioningly. And then, but because there's not maybe that front loaded aspect of it, you really get a sense of, yeah, really. And they could have done something as easily as maybe in the early years, they really teased him and made him feel like he wasn't good enough and he couldn't be that kind of person to her. That would have been fine. And then you would have understood like, okay, well, they've just neither gone there because he's shy about it. He feels like he's not good enough. And she's waiting for him to make the move. And then all this stuff happens. That would have made a lot more sense. Whereas with this one, it's just kind of like, well, it just never really happened. Sorry, we should have. But didn't. Okay, I guess now it's going to happen now,
what was fantastic and I didn't expect it was I thought Ed Sheeran was really good in this movie.
He was really good.
Yeah.
I liked how he wasn't like diabolically like.
No, he was himself.
He
was himself for the most part. There may have been some exaggerated aspects of it, but it lended to a lot of humor too.
Because it's like, what do you do when you're a world famous person that's respected for your songwriting and you come up against what is arguably the best music ever created? How do you handle that?
The guys are like,
and he comes out of nowhere. You know? Yeah.
The guys are like, they're like, hey, dude, really? He's like, yeah, that wasn't me. That was freaking Ed Sheeran.
I love that. That was one of the funniest things. Yeah. And I'm sorry for spoiling some.
It's not really spoiled. That segment's a little bit in the trailer, so whatever. But I love this movie, man. And if they could have tweaked Kate McKinnon's character, I could even overlook a lot of the love story stuff. But Kate McKinnon really took me out of the movie too many times. And
this one goes. I think the reason why maybe they didn't treat more of that childhood growing up thing more time in the film, give it more time in the film. It felt like they were trying to treat this almost as more of like a fable type story, which generally you don't do a lot of flashbacks and flash forwards. You tend to just stick in that time period. And so, but I agree. I think if they treated it a bit more differently, I kept thinking that he's going to wake up.
I kept thinking it was like something. Oh, yeah. We don't want to talk about what actually happens, but but I kept thinking something was going to happen at the end that like
changed everything.
Yeah, but it's whatever.
But I respect them for pulling what they did. So what are you rating this one?
Oh man, it's pretty high. I'm going to give it a 92.
Oh, wow. All right. I'm giving it the same one as last one. I'm giving it 89.
Sweet.
It would have gone into A, honestly, if it weren't for Kate McKinnon.
I know. It would have gotten a 98 for me if it would have been for Kate McKinnon.
It's like every time she was on screen, I'm like, you're fine, you're fine. Oh,
I'm like, stop.
Yeah. It was distractingly bad. So
yeah, I couldn't stand her.
Maybe they'll do a re-release. And
just cut her character.
Put somebody else in there. I would have been fine with like a smarmy, more of like... If they'd put somebody in there that has, like, she doesn't have, like, a sense of, like, when I see her, she doesn't come across as, like, business conniving, smarmy. She comes across as goofy and silly, and that's been her character in most things. So I'm like, put somebody in there that comes across as conniving and smarmy and just bottom line trying to make money, and I would have related to that 10 times better. You know what I mean? But anyway, Matt.
Yes.
You had one more film.
One more movie, guys.
That crawled past you, Rimshot, that I didn't have a chance to see. Probably won't have a chance to see just because of the type of film it is. Why don't you talk about it?
We are talking about the movie Crawl, came out this weekend. Synopsis: a young woman, while attempting to save her father during a Category 5 hurricane, finds herself trapped in a flooding house and must fight for her life against alligators. Directed by Alexander Aja. Written by a couple, I think they're siblings here, Sean and Michael Rasmussen.
The Rasmussens.
And stars Kaya Scodelario, Barry Pepper, who I really like, by the way, who I'm always like, oh, the sniper from Saving Private Ryan. That's who I always think of.
You don't see him in a lot, but he's good,
so him and then a number of other people as well, but those are our two main people that you're with the whole time. This movie had an embargo until the night before it was released, which would suggest that it's not very good. The studio doesn't have very much confidence in it. But then some like early buzz started coming out like right when it dropped.
Yeah.
But some very positive stuff.
Yeah, well, they weren't really even doing screenings.
No, they weren't.
Press,
Yeah. So I went to it kind of like optimistic as I usually am, and but I was trying to like temper my expectations because I'm excited. I like creature feature movies, but like ones that are well done, like like Sharknado, like those can have a time and place for fun, but like I don't put a lot of weight into those. But like if you get something that's taken seriously, I'm on board for it. And I thought that they did a really good job with this movie. It was actually very surprising.
Nice.
And a couple positives right after the bat. It had a $17 million budget, and some of the stuff that they pulled off in a hurricane film with some of the special effects, impressive with what they had to do. Not only with like the hurricane effects and some of the practical stuff with the houses and the floods and all that stuff, but with the CG. The alligators actually look really good. And I was just super impressed. The movie it's scary. It's got a lot of like earned jump scares. They're not like a cat jumping out of things and stuff like that, but like they're like legit things, and it's very like intense and brutal. It's not overly graphic, but there's a couple of moments you're like, ooh, okay. But it was really, really fun. It's kind of like one of the guys I went to go see it with, a friend of mine, he said it's kind of like Jurassic Park with alligators. I'm like, yeah, that's totally what it is. Like, and there, you got to go into it thinking like, okay, the reality of something like this probably happening is not as real as they might portray it in the movie, but because all of these alligators were like super massive, by the way. So you're like, I don't know about that, but anyways, but it was fun. Let's just say that it was a lot of fun. And I will say this, there's not a lot of negatives to it. It starts off a little bit slow, but I think they needed to do that to develop the character. The only thing that this movie falls into is there's a lot of really dumb decisions made.
Yeah.
And that's like pretty standard, like horror movie, thriller movie, like cliche, like, and it does it. And I understand why they did it. Because it does progress the story, so it's not just an empty thing to, but there are a couple that kind of resolve in nothing, but I was like, oh my gosh, there's so many times that the people I was with, they're like, what are you doing? Literally saying it, like, stop, don't do that. Yeah. That's a bad idea.
That's absolutely a trope of most horror movies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was as much in this one too, but the tension that was in this movie was really, really well done. And it was pretty short too, which was nice. They didn't try and make it longer than it had to be. It was an hour and a half, and it was perfect. Really, really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And acting was great too. Normally in horror movies, you get acting that's like mediocre at best, and it was really, really good all around.
Yeah. I think with this one, the only thing that might be a little bit challenging is definitely not hard to do a sequel.
Yeah,
this just seems like such a one-off scenario that hurricane and alligators invade a house and people stuck in there.
I mean, I could see them doing it, but like as a more of a like a straight to DVD or streaming service kind of a thing.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Like probably really low budget where the CG's not as good. Kind of like what they did with Deep Blue Sea.
Yeah.
But other than that, I found myself really enjoying it. It's not like going to win an Oscar or anything like that, but I'm going to give it an 85.
Wow.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
I think for a modern film of this nature, horror film of this nature, that's a really good rating.
Yeah.
We haven't seen something like that in a while. And I like the fact that it's original too.
Yeah.
It might have been taking a lot of hits and beats from other types of films that are out there, such as Jurassic Park or something. But I like the fact that I'm like, I don't think I've ever seen a film like this where this thing's going on.
Yeah.
I'm actually surprised. This is completely random, but I'm surprised you didn't go see the other horror, the big one that came out Midsummer.
Annabelle?
No, Midsummer.
Oh, Midsummer.
Yeah.
That's on my list. I'll see it eventually. But here's the thing. With Ari, what's his name?
Yeah.
He his movies just they tend to leave you feeling kind of depressing or depressed, and
they're more of like a mentally scarring type thing.
And as well of a film as like Hereditary was done and made and shot and acted and all those things, like I don't know, I felt so bad at the end of that movie. Like I was just like, and I'm kind of getting the same type of vibes from Midsummer. So
that's absolutely what he's going for with it. But
it's like his thing.
Yeah, he's gone on record saying he wants to do comedies next. So
what? Are you serious?
Yeah, he's saying he wants to do some comedies. I think he's recognized
Hereditary too.
It'll be fun. Take the family.
Oh my gosh.
But I know the other one, I think the big one that I'm going to have to see, the big horror one that's coming out is It Chapter 2.
Oh yeah, I'm excited for that one. That one already looks scary as heck, man.
Yeah, it does.
Oh, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark looks scary too.
That does look scary as well, yeah.
Guillermo, man. Anyways, so I would recommend it if you like creature features, the one that's really well done and it's particularly scary and good effects and well acted and pretty brutal at times. Go check out Crawl.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Matt. We're going to go ahead and wrap things up on the podcast right now. Then I'll give you some ways to get connected before we go. RealReviewMedia.com is our website. We also have our Facebook, which is facebook.com/RealReviewMedia. We'd love to get connected with you on that platform. Additionally, we have Instagram and Twitter, which are both at Real Review Media. And then if you'd like to check out some of our video content as it does come out, it's not quite as much as we used to be doing, but there's some up there. You can check it out, youtube.com/TheRealReview. Last but not least, we'd love to hear your thoughts and perspectives. Maybe you had a chance to see any of these films, and maybe there's some sides of it that we didn't cover that you wanted to talk about. Shoot us an email, realreviewmedia@gmail.com. We'd love to get your input and thoughts as well. We always like to hear from different audience members what they're thinking. So, yeah. Anything else, Matt?
No, that's it.
All right. Well, I will do my best to keep you updated as
keep
this
me
week
updated from
gets crazy
Comic-Con.
with
I'm excited for Marvel.
Yes. Like I said, I'm going to be camping out for probably at least 2 days to get into that panel, which I know sounds crazy, but hey, you got 100-some thousand people trying to get into it.
Yeah.
So. Anyway, it's been real.
It's been real.